All right, Lions fans, let's talk. It's too early. It's too early to predict if this team is going to be successful or not. I normally gauge it in phases, and this is going into phase two, I believe. Phase one was what Matt Patricia, well, forgive me, what Bob Quinn and Matt Patricia was doing. They did phase one, and maybe I was change that and say there's going to be four phases. And they did two phases. They they faded out the previous regime. Bob Quinn and Matt Patricia did. They got rid of that one. They implemented some foundation pieces. That was phase two. Phase three is like phase two and phase between two and three. You're evaluating to see who's going to be your pillars, the ones that's going to be your mainstays. And this is where uh, uh, Brad Holmes and Dan Quinn and company they chimed in on phase three, phase four. If I were to say it was three phases, I would just take one of those phases out, of course. But if I'm going to make it four phases, I'm going to say Brad Holmes and company is at phase three, going into phase four. What I mean by all this is to say it should take three phases to make it a contender. Three phases. That's one phase is getting rid of the past. Second phase is to be in the present, and the third phase is no, forgive me. The first phase is to get rid of the past. The second phase is to prepare for the future. The third phase is to be in the present. So they are in a position to be in phase. They're going towards phase three to be in the present. This this year is going to be somewhat of an evaluation. Somewhat. It may be like possibly four positions. And what I mean by positions and position group, that four position, well, I'm going to say four position group. There's three players, well, there's four players of three position groups, let's say it that way. You have Trey Flowers, Halapalooty Vitae, and I'm going to say Jamie Collins. Those three are up for evaluation. I'm going to go on the record by saying all three is going to stay. They're going to finish out the whole year. Why? But it is not so much because you can supplant them and upgrade them in off season. Yeah, you can if they don't come to form. But I'm saying like this, going to phase three, they're not gonna have to replace those three. They can just go not best player available, not most talented. They can actually get the big splash free agents. If they needed to, or they can make the not so much free agent, but also to make a trade or so, to get that guy. Say like for example, if Deshaun Watson situation is still in Texas and the whole accusation thing is clearing up and so forth, then let's say Jared Goff doesn't pay off. It doesn't pan out, not pay off, but pan out in this year. You can waive him in off season. I don't think it's much of a cap hit if it is a cap hit after this year. And then you have the bargaining chips to trade for Deshaun Watson. But you also will have the team that will be suited for Deshaun Watson. That's going into phase three. That's next offseason. I say all that to say I was on record by saying giving Matt Patricia a third year to stay. Basically, I was more so going for Bob Quinn so Bob Quinn could finish the deal. Bob Quinn did a heck of a job, and I'm not going to go over that. But what this current regime drafting, that is, they did everything that I believe Bob Quinn would have done, which would have took care of phase three, or going into phase three. So this current regime is right on pace for making this team into contention. This going to this third phase is evaluation, and you're going to see it. But the fourth phase is basically that's the home run hitter. That's where you can actually get the guy to go over the top. You will have you pretty much your foundation pieces. You have your mainstays. You have your somewhat of continuity, maybe in a position group or maybe one or two. Man, I'm going to say they're going to go on the record by two groups. I'm going to say three. It's going to be pushing to be four. This team actually could push it to actually be threatening to be a contender this year, but not getting there yet. I said they're going to be 9-8. So they're going to be a 500 team. Of course, in the 500, that's above 500, but they're going to be a 500 plus team. And the reason for it is because they have a 500 plus roster. They haven't have the full roster yet, and that instills by continuity, developing an identity, and actually learn how to hit the opponent first. And then to be a contender is not that you hit the opponent, you hit them, and then you're able to put your foot on their throat. That's when you are a contender. But right where they are, they have three groups. The offensive line, starting with the offensive line, the defensive line, the whole defense. I'm gonna say like that. The whole defense, from the defensive line to the linebacker core to the secondary. I look at the whole defense taking this next step forward. Everything that they're doing this year or will do this year is what I foreseen the Bob Quinn, Matt Patricia doing, going in there. I want to say third year, fourth year. I think he was here for 3 years. I'm not sure if it was a fourth year. I'm not sure how that goes. But what they did, what Brad Holmes did, is what I was expecting Bob Quinn and them to do. And this team would be right where it's at, but it was nowhere near ready to develop anything. I mean, or in terms of contention, because nothing was solidified. No group, there was no foundation at all. You first you have to assemble a team. And then you have to evaluate what you have to what you assembled. And once you evaluate your assemble, you see what's going to be your foundation pieces, and then from your foundation pieces, you see from there who's going to complement those foundation pieces or not. That's just where your addition with subtraction kicks in. And if everything is intact, you don't have to replace any of the foundation pieces to get new foundation pieces. So I'm going to chop off of that, whatever. And I just, the not iffy, forgive me, Afitu Melifonwu, Levi Onwuzurike, Derek Brown, Alim McNeil. Is everything what Matt Patricia needed. This is great. This is what I would have. How this team is assembling is what I would have liked for Bob Quinn to been able to do so. Bob Quinn, he didn't have nothing to build off of. He had nothing. Brad Holmes is doing a great job because he has something to build off of, and he's building it. He don't have to tear it down because he actually has something to build off of. Bob Quinn gave him quality pieces to build off of. There was nothing of quality here to build off of for Bob Quinn. They are going into the right direction. They're going to be knocking on the door. They're going to be a very competitive team this year. Very competitive. Yet, but they don't have enough know-how to get over those humps. You know those games that those games were up under Matt Patricia where they lost like so many fourth quarters, or they was leading like up to three quarters, and the team would tank out. Every piece that they brought in here this year would have been great for that Patricia era, and those games that it wasn't able to close out, they would have been able to close out with these pieces. So this is why this team is actually, it puts me so much in mind of the Dallas Cowboys. The 90, I want to say the 91, 89, I want to say 90 to 95 run. It puts me so much in mind of that. When they was knocking on a door early on, and this is, of course, when they faced the Detroit Lions in the wild card and they lost, but it was knocking on the door. They go into that off season with a few more pieces in a draft and free agents, and they made some trades. Now they're no longer knocking on the door. They're not getting beat by the Detroit Lions now. They're basically in the Super Bowl. That's how I look at the Lions. The Lions is going to be knocking on the door, but they're not going to get there this year. I give them 8-9 at best, 8-9 at worst, 9-8 at best. With that being said, Lions fans, I salute.